afternoon, everybody. We're here for a very special live stream. We have a special guest today. This is Ryan Mauro, and he's going to talk to us about the real Mount Sinai. You will recognize Pastor Joe Hurd, who we have spent much time with, and you're going to appreciate hearing him talk about this subject. But we're so excited to tell you some things, and we've got Ryan here for that very purpose. Behind us, you see a picture of the real Mount Sinai, which is going to be in Saudi Arabia. And we're so excited to tell you this because we've actually been on one trip last January, and Ryan was our guide into that country. Mm-hmm. We went with living passages. Look at that shirt Ryan's wearing. They were so wonderful. Miss Rhonda Sand is the tour group owner and the travel agent. And she's been to that country 100 times. And she lent us Ryan, who is this wonderful person, to take us in. We're going to let you hear a little bit about what he does. And Pastor Hurd, of course, he couldn't help himself when he got there.
Oh,
he
it was
videoed,
overwhelming.
he taught, he spoke, and he can't wait to go back again.
That's exactly right. It was one of the most incredible trips, I think, of my lifetime. And we've had the privilege over the past year or two to, of course, go through the Holy Land, all of Israel from the top to the bottom, just about. We've had the privilege of being in Asia Minor, Turkey,
and
churches, tour the 7 churches of Asia. We've had the privilege of following the footsteps of Paul and going through Greece, the northern part, all the way down to Corinth. But one of my favorite places on the planet to go, and I am not kidding, it was one of the greatest trips of my lifetime to be able to go to Saudi Arabia and enter into that country and view what the Bible had explained thousands of years before, that all laid out in front of us piece by piece, and to tie the land together with the scripture was absolutely incredible to me to see it unfold. And when you're there, that's exactly what happens. It unfolds in an unbelievable way, in so much that it's undeniable that this is truly the land of the Bible. It is truly the land where the Jewish people came out of Egypt into that area of the world to go to Mount Sinai. And so we're excited today to have Ryan Mauro with us. He is an expert in these things, and not only in Mount Sinai, but also in many different things. And when I read his bio, I was just taken back by all of the experience. It was overwhelming to see all that you've done throughout your life. And Ryan, we're glad to have you here today. We appreciate you.
Really happy to be here, and it was great to have you guys on the trip.
It was great. And Ryan is just a tremendous tour guide and helped us to tie these things together in a powerful way. And so if you've ever thought about going to Saudi Arabia, I'm telling you, you want to be on his trip. You don't, that's the person that I would sign up with. And as a matter of fact, we've done it the second time. And so we're excited about that. But listen, if we can you take just a moment to kind of give us your background and a little bit about who you are, and then how you've come to this whole thing of Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia?
Sure. So my full two-wordy bio is at ryanmauro.com if you get really interested in some of the different things I'm saying. But personally, my background is in national security, intelligence, counterterrorism, that type of thing. My professional career in that started when I was 16 years old, actually. Just one of those miraculous chance encounters that happened that got me doing that. And then that led to me doing that type of analysis in the media, writing articles for different websites, and then building a small public profile that then led to me to being somewhat consistently on Fox News Channel as one of their national security guest analysts. And working for different organizations, basically overseeing intelligence operations against terrorists, extremists engaged in criminal behavior, whether it's Antifa or jihadists or white supremacists. I was going after them along with the analysts I oversaw. So that's my background, and it intersected with my faith in this overall topic of what's going on in the region in terms of the Bible and biblical archaeology, because I did not grow up in a place of faith. It just wasn't, believed in heaven because, like, don't you want to believe in that?
Right.
That's nice.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, clueless.
Yeah.
And then I got into it probably age 11 or something like that. When I was first introduced to it, with great resistance. I didn't want to go to church, but I was forced to go. And thankfully I was. And very quickly I joined the winning team.
Right.
But one of the first problems I had is I'm very academic in my approach. I view everything as a puzzle piece. I collect facts wherever I can. I don't really, as long as it's from a somewhat credible source, I like it. And I try not to be political when I do it. I try not to look at it with any type of ideological viewpoint, if to whatever degree a human can. Right. And there was a big hole in my faith in regards to the issue of evidence. Because if you do not grow up as a person of faith, some of this sounds really crazy.
Right.
In fact, even today, I look at it when I try to imagine myself looking at it as someone not as a believer, I get it.
Yeah.
And I came across like a teenager's Bible type thing, and it actually said in there that there had been no evidence of the Exodus found.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, that was it. It was like in the sidebar of a Bible, and I was like, "What? All right, well, let me at least go into Google and start looking at that." And that's how I came across this theory that the better explanation wasn't that it didn't happen; it was that you're just looking in the wrong spot.
Right.
And I got captivated by it, and it tugged at my heart over the years. I didn't fully buy into it, especially when various miracles came together, gave me the opportunity to go. And one of the first people in recent times, there's definitely been people before me, but there was a large gap there. I had a lot of doubt then, especially when it comes down to it and you're like, well, this could go really, really bad.
Yeah, right.
At that time. So, so you start questioning it all. But then I've got to tell you, once I was there, just like you saw when you were there, visually, you can see even on video and it's captivating. It's nothing like being there. It's just much more dramatic. And I'm the type of person that will not vacation somewhere because I've seen enough videos and pictures.
Right.
I'm inclined to be that guy. And that spoils the fun.
Yeah.
But I've got to tell you, when it comes to this, it really is true. You got to see it for your own eyes, and
Absolutely.
It's impossible to write in text form too. If you read about it, just to see how.
So I want to tell you biblically where we are. There are two pieces of evidence, one in the Old and one in the New. One's in Exodus chapter 3, when Moses is before the burning bush, and he says, and a voice comes out and says, "I am that I am." He says, "Come back and worship me here at this mountain." And Moses was then in Midian because he'd been 40 years in Egypt. Now he's 40 years in Midian. Midian is Saudi Arabia. So there's your first Old Testament account. That mountain that he came back to was, of course, Mount Sinai. It was in Saudi Arabia, Midian. But the second one is in Galatians 4:25. It's talking about the covenant between Sarai and Haggai and comparing them. And it says, but Mount Sinai is in Arabia. Now, Egypt is well known at this point. They left Egypt, and so we now have two accounts, no matter what all the other people have said, that it's always been Saudi Arabia. But for some reason, for thousands, hundreds of generations, and even millennium, nobody believed this. Right. And now we get to this generation. And God's expressed desire is to give us the absolute truth. And because this is true, and it's where he said it is, you can believe that every other thing that he has said in this Bible is absolute truth, and what he said he will do, he is going to do. And so now, Ryan was so kind to come up from his home and spend time with us today. We have an expert here, and he has been trekking back and forth and taking people, and some of them are kind of famous. He's taken some famous people. Just smile, Ryan.
Okay.
But he's certainly been on enough programs of Bill O'Reilly, Sean Honey. I couldn't even imagine. Glenn Beck. And Fox News, so many times he's involved in think tanks. He's been a strategic analyst for military, for all of these government organizations. And so when we go to Saudi Arabia with him, with Living Passages, that's the tour group that we're going to be going with, we have a counterterrorist analyst expert who will be with us. So what we're saying is you'll never be safer. Pastor,
Right.
did you feel safe in
There
Saudi
was
Arabia?
not one time anywhere we were that I ever felt in danger or uneasy, ever. Everywhere we were, everybody made us feel welcome, just open arms to us to be in their country and to be touring the country. It was incredible to me because that's not what I expected.
Right.
I really expected people to be kind of looking at me like, what are you doing here? But that's not what we got. We got warm welcomes everywhere we went. We stayed in beautiful hotels. The tour company took great care of us, getting us to the places where we were going. And it was just an incredible experience. Like I said, it is one of my favorite places to go. It was that good. Incredible.
Ron,
And it's also changed since my film came out. So during the intense parts that you see in the film, that's not what it's like today. Things have changed. They've opened up a bit, thanks to Rhonda, who spent an enormous amount of time there to open it up, along with Joel Richardson, my friend, just great guy, also an expert on this. Basically opened up the doors for this to happen, and have the first officially recognized tours to the real Mount Sinai, even though the Saudi government doesn't say real Mount Sinai, but it still was an officially permitted tour for the first time to go there. So things are safe. For a bunch of reasons I get into if anybody questions that. This isn't an opportunity for extremists or terrorists. And the locals, the vast majority want you there. I can't think of today in recent years anyone that has not, that actually lived there and oppose us going. The Saudi government wants it because they want to open up to tourism. There's positive PR. Muslims consider this to be a holy site, so they're proud that it's getting recognized. So all the incentives are on the side of keeping us safe. And even with everything going on with Israel and Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, it's still very, very safe. In fact, in a way, it might be safer because it's sort of like the irony of where's the least likely murder to take place? Where murder just happened. Because everyone's reacting to it and everyone's on guard and alert. And so it actually is very safe to go there. There's no sign of the war expanding into northwestern Saudi Arabia in the middle of the desert. It's just, and if there was a sign of it, I'm not looking to die either. So,
Exactly.
And if one of you got hurt, the whole tour business is of Rhonda's is kaput, which means I'm gone too. So I have every incentive in the world to keep people as safe as possible and not to take really any risk that's tangible.
Right.
I
think that one of the cool things about it is that it is locals there that are driving us, that are taking us where we're going. And I may be mistaken, but these were Bedouin men that were with us. Some of them were. And knew the area.
Delightful.
And were wonderful. Just took care of us in tremendous ways, make sure we had everything we needed everywhere we were. So, you're hearing from a Middle East expert today telling you that going with us to Saudi Arabia is one.
Brings us to the fact that we're going to take a trip to Saudi Arabia this next January the 29th to February the 7th. And Ryan, Pastor Hurd, and I, we're going to bring the biblical part. Ryan's going to be the expert on the ground and living passages. That's Miss Rhonda Sand, has been there 100 times. She's been in and out of this country 100 times. And since we were there in January, she's been 6 times since then. And so we're all really, really excited about it. It's a 10-day trip. We're going to have lots of information to tell you this, but also because of Saudi Arabia's new brilliant city, Neom, that they're building, this mega city, nothing like it in the whole world, that now some of that construction is weighing on the archaeological evidence, which means that it won't be around forever. That what we want you to see, that's been laying there for thousands of years, untouched, that's still there. Now we see that in the way of progress, the Saudis have they don't have any attachment to the archaeological account of the Jews. No, they don't. So what they want is this big new Neom city. And so we are eager to get back there, eager to go to the burnt mountain. If you look in the back at that picture, friends, family, churches, over here, that's the burnt mountain top. Ryan also took us to the golden calf altar. And what's there, Ryan? What's inscribed? What's written in that? What are some of the things we might run into at that altar?
Well, basically every major element of the Exodus story, from the Red Sea crossing to Moses coming to Mount Sinai, you'll see some sort of visual evidence and correlation with the land with. So it really is like bringing the story to life in a way that is amazing. And like you said, aside from the issue of the Saudis shutting down access for security or PR reasons, you do have the issue of where the construction is definitely happening.
Yeah.
So each year it looks different. So that's definitely happening. If you wait a year, it will definitely not be as have that as much of a sentimental feeling, because the scenery is different. I mean, you want to go and see it as Moses and the Israelites would have seen it in the desert, and not have these big buildings and stuff going on. But as for the golden calf altar, there is
the Hebrew menorahs, some of the Hebrew script. There's no mistaking about what's down there.
Right.
That's not Arabic. Oh no, it's ancient Hebrew.
Yeah.
No question about this.
And the bulls inscribed in that altar that are there.
The bull it's very obviously bull worship. The Saudis even say, because some of they had an archaeological team that kind of attacked this theory. It wasn't very impressive in terms of their logic and argumentation. But even they said it dates back old enough that it could be during the time of the Exodus. And I mean, what else was going on there? I mean, there's no record of a massive population aside from the biblical account of a big population being there, and yet here you have clear proof that somewhere around the time of the Exodus, there was bull worship going on in front of the mountain as the likeliest candidate for the real Mount Sinai. So what do you think it is? I mean, it's got to be, it's just logically, it's just got to correlate with the golden calf worship incident.
Absolutely.
And
it makes
pillars. Pastor Hurd, go ahead.
Oh yeah.
Talk about the
it,
pillars.
it makes complete sense, because when I only made it about halfway and decided to turn around and come back down. But when you're standing there, you can see the altar of the golden calf from the mountain. Fits perfectly with Moses coming down with the Ten Commandments and seeing them doing what they're doing. When you stand there and connect all of the pieces from what Cathy was just talking about, the pillars that are described in Exodus that Moses set up, the 12 pillars representing the 12 tribes before the mountain, close to the altar where he's making sacrifice, and the altar still being there, the chute for the animals still being there. When you put all of these pieces together, it's undeniable in my mind that this is the place where Moses brought the children of Israel, and that God himself came down and sat on top of that mountain. That absolutely is astounding. And to stand up there and see the valley floors and how the children of Israel could have been laid out in the valley floors there is, it's overwhelming. It is overwhelming. So whenever we look at those pillars, if I counted correctly, I think 10 of the 12 are still there, and it looks like a couple of them have just been busted up.
Right.
Okay.
Well, there's pieces from the marble or whatever that was constructed from it. There's pieces because people go there and they chop at it. And there's been there's also quarry activity in the area, so then you have pieces of that.
I hate to say this, but one of us that's sitting close by, that I'm not saying who, actually
You
came
don't have
home.
to tell everything you know.
But there was another person who actually came home accidentally, also with a piece of
That
something.
may have had a rock in their pocket.
Possibly.
I don't know.
But right
Yeah.
in front of us, this is the skeptic. This is the
But
millennial
you didn't
skeptic.
cut off a piece.
No.
though.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, there's pieces of marble that
No.
the material that would have been possibly used to create the pillars.
Right.
Sometimes those little chips go missing.
Right.
But
So let me ask you this, if I can. All of that is so well preserved. I mean, we're talking, 3,000 years ago, 3,500 years ago. All of that is so well preserved. How do you think it has stayed so well preserved? I mean, usually the topography and what is there lasting 3,500 years.
Right. Well, what would have necessarily degraded? If there's bull worship going on and they're making pictures of it through the petroglyphs on the rocks, like that does stay around. So that's actually to be expected. There hasn't been a major population that's reside there aside from some Bedouins, and the local Bedouins know of the tradition, have known of it for as long as they can remember and as long as their parents and grandparents can remember. So they don't want to damage it.
Right.
So you have just in terms of like the social science of it, you don't have a population there, and of those that are there, they don't want to damage it. And then you just have ignorance, just us. Instead of worshiping the Bible, we worship tradition. You keep hearing the same thing over and over again. That when Moses went out of Egypt, no, he actually stayed in Egypt. We just called Egypt different. You know, they have ways to make that argument, and you say it so much that people just assume that that's fact. Yep. And then when no evidence is found there, they say, okay, well then I guess the whole story is wrong. I mean that's the silly logical path that has led to this conclusion that there's no evidence, and that this is a fringe theory. But it's getting more and more mainstream acceptance. It's being mentioned in authoritative books and things like that. And then even thanks to really Islam and the conservative practices that they have, that has led to less Western influence. Because if we're being honest, like if this was controlled by the Western world, we would have a hotel right on the top of that mountain.
Exactly.
Like we would have ruined it.
And gift shops all up and down.
Yeah, right.
Like it is in Ephesus.
And selling little pieces of marble to everybody.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking is really because of the way the land has been over the past 1,500 years and the control that it's been under has helped preserve this site so that it is the way it is today and has brought us to an incredible time where when there is so much skepticism in the world, things like this unfold in front of us and we're able to see with our own eyes all of the biblical evidence. And again, tonight we're going to dive into a whole lot of this, and Ryan's going to have as much time as he wants to be able to talk about all of that and get into all of that. But there is so much evidence there. I was overwhelmed. I really didn't expect to see that much, but everywhere you took us and was pointing out different things. One of the cool things, and I'll just mention it quickly because I don't know if we'll remember to talk about it tonight. You took us to an ancient burial site that is, I think, the backside of this mountain from where we're looking at right now. And I was amazed as we walked through there to see all of these rocks that are hollowed out and then has a little rock next to it, some of it in that rock. And to hear explanations like this is a possibility of this being where the women would grind out a meal.
That's been speculated, yep.
Yeah.
It's a mass burial site. So something happened where a large number of people were suddenly killed and buried in that site. And what does that match? I mean, the story of the golden calf, because the golden calf worshippers that basically revolted against Moses, they were killed, 3,000 of them. Yeah. And so you need a mass burial site. I mean, think about all these little details. Be as cynical as you can when you read the book of Exodus, because then you'll appreciate all these little details. Like even like you were talking about Moses coming down with the 10 Commandments. Yeah. If he doesn't have a viewpoint of the possible golden calf altar, it's not the site.
Right.
There's all these little things you realize once you're there for this to be the right site and for the story to be true.
Yeah. That was amazing to me, because the biblical account says that manna was on the ground every day. Right. And so they had to take that to make their food. If they're not just eating it off the ground.
They boiled it. They
boiled it, ground
you read it. Yep.
Baked bread or whatever out of it.
Yep.
And so all of those little things, like you say, are just
so specific. Yeah.
And Ryan, here's the millennial skeptic, which he's explained to you. He went to prove the evidence, and if you can get a millennial and a skeptic on top of it to understand, he's saying that he absolutely knows without a shadow of a doubt, we're looking at the real Mount Sinai. We're not only going to the real Mount Sinai, we didn't bring up the split rock. He had a foundation called the Doubting Thomas Research Foundation yes. because he's the Doubting Thomas.
Right.
That would be him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that explains his whole character. We've been doing a little Bible study he was forced into this afternoon at my house, and he's already questioning me, what about this? And where does it say that? And what about this? He's very analytical. That's the gift that he has. We're not only going on our 10-day trip with Ryan to Mount Sinai, we're jumping into Petra before we get there. And we're going to go to the hiding place of the Jews, which we think is Petra. We've got some incredible things packed. We're going to go to the real baptismal site, Bethany beyond the Jordan. We're going to go to the city of Adam, and we're going to show you that Jerusalem is the center of the Garden of Eden. we're going to prove it to you with the scripture. And we're going to take you there too. So we've got this double whammy Bible prophecy tour with Ryan Mauro. He's our ace in the hole, so to speak. And we're just so grateful he could be here today so we could say this to you. If you can, come with us. If you can't, we're going to film. We're going to get a drone. We're going to put together some incredible things for you so that you can feel like you're with us, so that you can understand what you couldn't understand. We're going to do everything we can. We've got teaching, preaching, study books, all of it. We're going to make available. Not going to cost you a penny. We just want you to do everything that we're doing. From whatever country you're in, from whatever ministry you're in, from whatever church you go to, none of that, all of that is wonderful to us. We want you to see one of the greatest revelations that God has given in all of the generations is the real Mount Sinai, the real crossing of the Red Sea, proving that God is exactly who he says he is. Everything that's in that Bible is exactly where he says it is. And you can count on him that everything he says he's going to do, he is going to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you are interested in going with us to Saudi Arabia, then you'll need to go to livingpassages.com and look up the Saudi Arabian trip. And when you scroll down there, you're going to see Ryan's picture and our dates for the trip to Saudi Arabia.
But our name is called Carried on Eagle's Wings.
Carried on Eagle's
Because
Wings.
we're going to talk about how God gets, when people come to the impossible place, that's Exodus 19, he carried them on eagle's wings.
Yes.
And that is what we're saying. This is one of those impossible places that couldn't possibly exist but God.
Right.
So carried on eagle's wings, January 29th, Pastor Hurd, Ryan Mauro, Cathy Bentley. We are so excited. We invite you to come. And even if
Faith and strengthen your walk with the Lord, I believe, because as you see the Bible coming to life in front of you, it just helps you to know that what God gave us all those years ago is still reliable today. It's true. And if what he said back then is true, then what he said for today is true. We believe that with all of our hearts. So Ryan, we want to thank you for coming, making time in your schedule to be a part of this today and to be with us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I haven't even done the speaking engagement yet, but I'm already having a great time. So thank you.
Great, great. We're going to feed him all the candy and junk food we can.
Yes.
Get him ready to go. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
All
doctor
right.
recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. God
see you
bless.
next week. Bye, everybody.